As we try to live healthier lives, many of us are looking for caffeine-free alternatives for our daily cuppa. But among the organic, natural, fair trade fruit and herb teas available, is there a hidden danger lurking in some of the pretty boxes? And this is the culprit. Licorice root has been used in Chinese medicine for over 5,000 years, but if you eat or drink enough of it, research shows that it can massively increase your blood pressure, which would take dying for a cuppa to a whole new level. Tastes harmless enough, but within the licorice root there's a chemical called glycyrrhizin, which the EU suggests you have no more than 100 milligrams a day of. So if a tea's got a large amount of licorice in, it's got to carry a warning. Contains licorice. People suffering from hypertension should avoid excessive consumption. That suggests for the rest of us, we can drink as much as we like, right?
But I think people who are eating licorice regularly are not aware of the risks, and the warning label in the pack, as you've so clearly shown, is totally inadequate. It just says that people with high blood pressure should be careful about taking it. Everyone should be careful, because the risk of blood pressures throughout the range, it's not just those people with high blood pressure, the increased risk of stroke or heart attack.
So which drink do these patients think will raise their blood pressure most in the long term?
The tea. Coffee.
I'd take a guess at coffee.
Definitely the hot chocolate.
Coffee. Oh, well, licorice tea.
Would it surprise the rest to hear it was the licorice?
Yes, it would surprise me actually, it would, because I think that would be something you think would be healthier for you. The way it's packaged, it's an alternative to hot chocolate, coffee and tea.
Yes, I would. I'd have thought that was the healthier one.
Anything that's clear, it's, got no caffeine in it, and so you would go for that, yeah. Well, what a shocker.
For most of the teas, drinking more than 1 cup a day will put you over the EU safe limit. But Janine only realised when I posted on social media.
I've been drinking licorice tea for about 10 years, and I was drinking roughly 10 cups a day.
When did you realise you had high blood pressure?
2 years ago I had to go in for a minor gynae operation, and they did my blood pressure at the hospital, at which point it was 260 over 140, and they were in a panic. I was immediately put on 2 different types of tablets to try and bring it down, but it never came down completely, just enough to have the operation.
So, what did Janine do after she saw my post?
I got straight in touch with you about it and thought, right, yes, I'm going to give it a stop and see how I go, because I took my blood pressure that day and then thought, well, if I give it a week and it hasn't come down, it won't make any difference, because I was on 2 lots of tablets at that point anyway, and it did come down very dramatically, so I carried on stopping drinking it.
What was your blood pressure at the point you stopped drinking it?
It was 155 over 109, and at that point I was having an aspirin a day and 3 different medications, so yeah.
And what is it since you've cut it out of your diet? What is it most recently?
My most recent was 126 over 80, and I've cut out all the tablets as well as the licorice tea now, so it's actually normal. I spoke to the pharmacist about the fact that I wanted to give up taking the tablets because the licorice tea thing. The pharmacist had never heard of anything connected with licorice tea, but said if I'm monitoring carefully to come off tablets 1 at a time, so that's what I've done. So, it makes me really angry that they don't label it better. Cigarettes do.
What do you think about the term, don't drink to excess?
Well, what the hell does that mean?
I asked GP Dr. Bedson to have a look at Janine's readings.
Off all her medication and not drinking any licorice tea, there is clearly a normal blood pressure that this lady's achieved again. Now, obviously that's not scientific, but that's really suggestive that something was happening there with the licorice tea, and probably is something that needs to be looked into a little bit further.
Do you think GPs should be more informed about it?
Well, absolutely. I think people are quite unaware of it. We have, through Blood Pressure UK, our charity organisation, tried to make people more aware of it. But I mean, it isn't easy. You've got new generations coming, and of course there's this big fashion now for licorice tea. So licorice consumption has probably increased with that, and it's claimed that these teas have some health benefits, I have no idea what they are. I think it's a load of old rubbish, but they're dangerous for people to drink, and I wouldn't recommend drinking licorice tea.
Nikki is a yoga instructor and was astonished to find out that she had high blood pressure.
Well, I realised, I just went for a routine test, just a routine checkup, and they said to me, goodness, your blood pressure's a little high, you know, not dangerously high, but, you know, you need to keep track of it, and actually I suggest, you know, you come in here again and just have it monitored. And I thought, well, that's really strange. And they said, oh, you know, do you have a history of high blood pressure in your family? And I said, no. I said, none of my family have high blood pressure. And they said, it's very strange that you should have it. Is there anything that you're doing that would cause it or anything? And I said, I can't think of anything at all. You know, and they asked if I had a high salt diet. Well, at the time, you know, and still is, my diet's very healthy. It was the Tea Pigs, mint and licorice tea that I drank. So I left it for several months. And then what happened was I woke up one morning and my husband looked at me and I had a big vein in the side of my head that was really protruded. And he said to me, I'm really worried about this, really, really worried about it. We had a couple of friends in the village are doctors, and he phoned them, they came round, took my blood pressure, it's 220/110. And they said, you know, you really are going to have to go to a doctor and get some medication for this. This is really, really scary. So I thought, okay, at that point I thought, right, I'm going to have to go to the doctor. And it was at that point that I thought, you know, they wanted to medicate me, and in fact they did give me medication, ACE inhibitors. And I thought, I'm not happy taking this. I started surfing the internet to find out if there's anything that I could, you know, healthier diet, something I could eat or not eat to you know, bring my blood pressure down. And it was purely by chance. I'd surfed and surfed and surfed and found this one little list of items, and in it, halfway down, was licorice root. And, you know, a light bulb went, and it was sort of like, that's what I've been drinking, you know, 5-6 cups a day. So it was purely by chance that I discovered it, and then, of course, you know, stopped drinking it.
Been well demonstrated in lots of studies. There's an issue about what dose of licorice, and particularly the active ingredient glycerinic acid, that has this effect, what you need to have a substantial effect on blood pressure. But any form of licorice will put up your blood pressure, and that's dangerous.
Well, one of the first things I did was to contact Tea Pigs and actually say to them, I'm really concerned about this, because I had read on the packaging that it said, you know, people who suffer from hypertension should not drink excessive quantities. Well, as I didn't have hypertension, it didn't mean anything to me at all. I didn't realise that it could actually cause the hypertension. So I did go back to them and I said, you know, I really feel the labelling needs to change, because it needs to say that perhaps not so much of it should be drunk, and that people should be aware that it can actually cause hypertension. They at the time said that they would address this and change it, although, you know, I mean, nothing was ever done. I mean, it is a massive thing that really, really does need to be addressed, and it's really remiss of the tea companies that they're not addressing this problem.
And licorice is really excellent plant to treat the coughs, especially when they're deep-seated, when they're chronic, and they need expectoration. So if somebody's got problems with the stomach, like ulcers, for example, or excessive production of the hydrochloric acid, so the stomach juice, and they have like a problem with gastroesophageal reflux, and it is not for prolonged use, and it's actually advised everywhere for the supervised use by professionals.
So are you concerned that 100% licorice teas are being marketed alongside perceived healthy choices?
Personally, as a herbalist, I am, yes. It gives licorice a bad name, and that is really, really upsetting.
These teas all have enough licorice in to require the EU warning. These are 100% licorice, 70%, 50% and 35 to 40%. Now, because we don't know where the licorice root is from or what variety it is, we don't actually know how much glycyrrhizin is present. So, I asked the tea companies. Only 3 were able to give me numbers. Asda, 35% licorice, is 91 milligrams. And according to Tea Pigs, their 70% licorice tea is 100 milligrams. What's even more worrying is this third tea from Morrison's has the exact same amount of licorice in as the tea from Asda, and it has absolutely zero warning on. So since my email to them, they've promised me that they're going to take this product off their shelves nationwide until they comply with EU regulations. It's just another illustration of how little is known about this, even by the companies selling it. What advice would Janine have for people like her who drink a lot of the tea and are suddenly diagnosed with high blood pressure?
For anyone with high blood pressure, stop drinking licorice tea or don't start drinking it. It's just a no-brainer really, because it's had such an effect.
And when it's time for bed, there's a lot to be said for a nice cup of tea.